I love Super Mario Galaxy 2. It's easily up there as one of my favorite games, and one of my favorite sequels in any medium. I've been thinking about making more videos on the Galaxy games for a while now, and I landed on doing a ranking of all the stars in the second one. Why start there? Well, I've already seen several big YouTubers cover every single star in the first game, and the Crabman said that he wasn't going to do a sequel. I wanted to see that video, so fine, I'll do it myself. I will get around to the first game at some point in the future. In fact, as of recording this intro, I literally just finished taking my notes for the first game yesterday. For now though, the spotlight's going to be on its younger brother. This is actually the second in a trio of Galaxy 2 videos that I'm planning to make. You might have already seen the shorter video I did ranking all the comet medals, and then there are the green stars. I initially wasn't going to bother with them at all since they would make the video significantly less positive, and they'd destroy the pacing with so many more entries with less to say about. Then after covering the medals, I figured I could give them a shot, but as their own separate video since analysing their placements within a level is a whole lot different from analysing the levels themselves. I hadn't replayed them as of when I wrote this script, but don't worry, I had my old 100% save file I could go back to, so Grandmaster Galaxy will be included here. This leaves us with 122 stars to cover, most of which I really like. As expected for a list of this size, there are a couple duds to go over at the very bottom, but you might be surprised how quickly we start getting into the good stuff. And there are no real guidelines to go over. If I like it more, it goes higher, simple as that. Not much else to say, let's-a go. So there were only 3 levels I thought had a shot at last place before I started this replay. Would it be the tedious purple coin mission in Clockwork Ruins? Or would I be bored enough by the 2 tedious enemy gauntlets in Battle Belt? After finishing the purple coin mission, I was certain that Clockwork had avoided last place and that Battle Belt had it in the bag. To my shock and horror, Clockwork had an even worse surprise in store. Last place is Clockwork Ruins Galaxy, the Ledge Hammer Trap. The planet the Hungry Luma spawns for this one is so mediocre. Very short, basic, and way too easy. The hammers are not a threatening enough obstacle to where I was even inconvenienced by not hitting the time slow switch. Not offensively terrible, some of the ways you can skip it are admittedly kind of cool, but nothing to write home about. You may be confused as to why this was my choice for last place then. Well, keep in mind I mentioned this being a Hungry Luma planet, one where the only location you can grind for coins is the spinning platform bit. They're slow as molasses, and I hate trudging through them as I wait for my next opportunity to grab a single coin. Especially when one slip up means falling into the void and redoing it all over again. Doing this shit again right after the Prankster Comet level was insult to injury. As I fed the Luma, I remember thinking, I forgot what the planet for this one was. Please tell me it's worth it and not some mid-reused boss fight. Then the planet appeared and I thought, oh wait, I remember this one being kinda sick actually. And then 20 seconds later was, oh, that was it. All that frustrating lead up to a mid payoff. Easy last place. With that rant out of the way, the rest of these will not be nearly as long. Battle Belt Galaxy, Mini Planet Mega Run. People call World S the point where Nintendo ran out of ideas. Just pretend you could see the air quotes there. Personally, I don't think that's fair. I have my problems with some of the individual levels, but it's just meant to be a little bonus world with some fun extra challenges. Battle Belt, on the other hand, absolutely deserves to have that title thrown its way. This is just a gauntlet of enemies on some basic, boring planetoids. The enemies in the Galaxy games are at their best when combined with fun gimmicks, engaging platforms, or other hazards to make them more of a threat. Battle Belt has none of that. Kill 2 or 3 grunts, move on to the next planet, rinse and repeat. It only gets mildly interesting at the end with the Silver Chomp onslaught, which is too little too late and not worth trudging through the rest for. I'll at least give it props that every planet's a different terrain, so there is some aesthetic variety. They weren't all plain grey rocks like I remembered. That's where the bar for my praise is at. Battle Belt Galaxy Mini Planet Daredevil Run. Level so nice they had to do it twice. I suppose the Daredevil comet does make things a bit more interesting, but not enough to save this retread of a level that I already didn't enjoy. I'd normally say, oh, I would have liked fewer checkpoints to encourage doing it in one go, but with a level this monotonous, I'm glad that one slight slip up near the end doesn't force me to redo it all over again. I did this one as Luigi, as is the case for a couple of the ones that involved redoing a level, and even that didn't inject enough life into this to make me like it. Clockwork Ruins Galaxy, The Adventure of the Purple Coins. Like I very unsubtly alluded to in the Hungry Luma level, I do not enjoy collecting things on these slow-moving platforms, and starting over every time you fall off is annoying. said annoyance did have a surprising boon to the ending portion, because I did feel some adrenaline at the worry of dying and restarting. Even though that's not because I found the level itself actually fun, it does mean that I got something out of the experience to catapult it above the 3 ranked below it. I also appreciate the Whittles as progress markers to tell you how many you should have to prevent any unnecessary backtracking. Their numbers are the same but flipped around, and that's adorable. There is a bit more fun to be had here than with the other D tiers, but not enough to stop my opinion from flipping to fully negative. Only 4 D tiers out of 122 though? Not a bad record, I must say, especially considering that they only represent 2 of the 49 galaxies. Still a few more to go before we get to the bangers though. Time for the C tiers. Puzzle Plank Galaxy Bugaboom's back. I'm so confused why Puzzle Plank decided to copy the boss lineup from Honey Hive. Of all galaxies to poach that from, why the one with 2 of the weakest bosses in the game? Well, okay, I have softened up to them a little bit. If you've seen my old boss ranking from before I really found my voice with recording, know that my opinions from then are very outdated now, as you'll soon find. Bugaboom's better than I remember, D tier was probably a bit harsh, but I still can't say this does a whole lot for me. The arena's decent and it's mildly satisfying to land a ground pound, but the fight is baby easy, even by Mario standards. Not like the grind to get coins for the Hungry Luma's much more interesting. They're all in the room right next to it. I wouldn't call this an actively unfun time, just thoroughly whatever and unremarkable. Supermassive Galaxy Big Wiggler Speedrun. It disappoints me that they had no ideas for this galaxy beyond the 1 level. The original mission is great, redoing it with an unimposing time limit feels like a lazy rehash. Fluffy Bluff Galaxy, every planet has its price. Already we're starting to get into the stars that I can at least somewhat enjoy. It's still not super memorable, the final platforming bit is extremely short and easy, but gathering the coins within the wonderful atmosphere of Fluffy Bluff is enough for me to say I had an alright time with this. Honeybloom Galaxy The Secret Wall Jump. A solid hiding spot for a hidden star that isn't too deep into the level to waste much time going for it, but it's so short and doesn't do a whole lot to make itself interesting beyond some pretty standard wall jumping. Jumping high enough off the swing was tougher than it looked, though I may also just be bad at video games. Haunty Hall's Galaxy Spooky Cosmic Clone Chase. Cosmic clones in these moving walkways seem like such a natural combination. Shame that they end up hardly mattering and being a complete breeze. Not fixing the problem I had when Big Boo was the one chasing you in this section. Speaking of which, Haunty Hall's Galaxy Sneaking Down the Creepy Corridor. A solid enough level for the most part that introduces boos quite well. They're much more aggressive and mechanically interesting than the Octoboos we'd previously seen. Where this lets me down a little bit is with the Big Boo set piece. The jump scare is neat and I like the idea behind it, but it's so easy that he feels entirely inconsequential both times he shows up. Cloudy Court Galaxy The Shadow Lining. An alright platforming level that the clones don't add a whole lot to. The opening is kinda mad outside of when you have to double back around, the rest of it is fine. The highlight is surprisingly the crystal at the end. Keeping on the move while your spin refreshes is the closest thing I felt to tension for the entire mission. Puzzle Plank Galaxy Purple Coin Shadow Vault. You'd think the cosmic clones and time limit would add a lot to this, and they do to an extent. They give a level of urgency to get it done quickly, and some tension if you happen to miss any coins in a batch. They can only carry such a basic mission so far though. This room is so unexciting and mundane. Other levels use the clone and timer combination with settings that are actually cool on top of that. Flipsville Galaxy Flip-Flopping in Flipsville. I like the bulk of the level. Flipsville has a really neat concept, but the boss lets it down a lot near the end. I feel like I gave Glamdozer too much of a pass before because I like the ideas behind her, but how much can that carry a fight where those ideas don't get to be utilized? It's as simple as ground pound through a grate, wait for her to walk straight over immediately, ground pound again to hit her, repeat without needing to move. If they were able to do a bit more with it, like maybe have her forcibly move you between hits, or do something else to make the same grate less easy to abuse, or have her see you go through one and walk around it so you've got to get out of her sight and trick her into going over one of them. I don't know, anything to make this more than the freest boss in the game. At least with Final Bowser I actually have to move to aim the meteors correctly. Bowser Jr.'s Fiery Flotilla Speedrun. A rehash of a great boss that isn't that tough to do in the time limit. Not much more to say on it than that. The base level is far more substantial and will rank much higher. I guess if I ever feel like just going straight to Gobblegut, then this exists as an option to save me some time. Stone Cyclone Galaxy Toxbox Speedrun. I'll discuss my overall thoughts on this galaxy when we get to the base mission later on. This one's just kind of a lesser version to me. I do really like the tension the timer adds. It can cause you to make stupid mistakes if you're not patient with the Toxboxes. But unlike the Silver Stars, the speedrun is way easier to barrel through and skip large chunks of the level, since there's no incentive to cover the entirety of the main path. For as infamous as this galaxy's difficulty is, it was one of the timed missions I had the largest safety net for when I reached the end, and that was with skipping several of the clocks. Twisty Trials Galaxy, spinning, spinning, and spinning. I haven't played Sunshine, so forgive me if I'm way off base, but wasn't the point of some of these bonus rooms that you had to get through with raw platforming without the help of FLUDD? Does giving you an additional Cloudflower here not kind of go against that? I decided to skip using it and go solely off platforming with base Mario, and it was a decently fun time. Could get a little frustrating with the occasional awkward physics for jumping off these blocks, and the level is very much a one-trick pony with minimal variance in aesthetic or mechanics. For what it is though, it was mildly enjoyable to go through, and fairly satisfying to do without the power-up. Wild Glide Galaxy Jungle Fluzzard Race. The same as the base mission, except now it's a race with the Jabberjays, so there is a bit of urgency. I appreciate the slight tone change, but it's not difficult enough to make it any more exciting than the original mission was previously. The main reason I put this below the first Fluzzard Star though, is that the lack of comet medal gates give you less to actively aim for during your glide, so you can just go for a straight shot to the end much easier. The difference isn't huge though. As a matter of fact, let's close out this tier with Wild Glide Galaxy Fluzzard's First Flight. I used to dislike the Fluzzard missions because motion control's therefore. Thankfully though, I've come around on them as time has gone on. The steering has its occasional awkwardness. No motion controls are going to be completely airtight. For the most part though, I think the bird controls decently. Flying through this jungle is fairly relaxing, with some pleasant scenery and calming music. And this has a really good use of the comet medal with the gates you need to fly through to unlock it. Still isn't a level I feel too strongly about, but now I can say I enjoy the star a decent amount. Only barely enough to not make it into B tier, which we can now move on to. Battle Belt Galaxy, snack time for Gobblegut. Fiery Gobblegut is the only thing in this galaxy that's worth a damn. I think I judged him unfairly harshly way back when. Like, yeah, he's not as satisfying of a full circle moment as Fiery Dino Piranha was. This feels like a much less purposeful choice, but as a boss, I'd say this is one of the better ones in the game and a definite step up from the vanilla version, if not quite reaching the top 5 of the duology. Particularly towards the end with the lava pools and meteors, this one can get kinda crazy, with mistakes chaining into each other causing you to miss your windows to attack. Shame I've got to replay half of the boring enemy gauntlet to get to the bit I actually want to do. If only there was some other galaxy this would fit better in. Like, hypothetically, a fire-themed one that abandoned that theming after the first star. Hightail Falls Galaxy, Silver Stars, and Hightail Falls. The original mission is peak, so I don't mind going back through it to get to the Hungry Luma. Said Luma's planet is kinda forgettable even if it has the only instance of the Kleptoads. Very concerning that my friend Sam knew exactly what I was talking about when I called them the quirky blue dudes in my notes, but I enjoy it enough. Twisty Trials Galaxy, Turning Double Time. Same gist as the base mission really, except the platforms spin twice as fast now to make it a bit more interesting and not have you wait as long. They also replaced the Cloudflower with Yoshi. Not that it makes any difference to me because I didn't use either. Throwback Galaxy, Womp Silver Star Speedrun. As much as I adore the original mission, slapping a timer on doesn't do much for it. I was admittedly down to the last 2 seconds on my run, only because I actively stopped and went back to speak to the Bob-omb buddies, and fell off the bit above the water so I had to make my way back up a floor. If I took things a bit more seriously, I doubt I would have been cutting it nearly as close. Spindig Galaxy, Silver Stars Down Deep. Short, simple, and solid. I like the Silver Star section well enough for how it played around with gravity and which side you choose to dig on. Though I do wish a concept this cool got to be used for something a bit more memorable. The peak of this level to me was actually the bit where you go down past the electric ball things. Trying to time your drill to dodge them is really fun. This may also have the most pointless cosmic clone section ever made. The crystal is right next to where you spawn, so what was even the point? I long jumped into it and the clones died within a second of spawning. Puzzle Plant Galaxy, the puzzling picture block. Pretty standardly good level, with a great use of the buzzsaws as they alter the platforms as you go through them. I'm a bit let down by the final puzzle though. There's nothing to really figure out, you just kind of ground pound on the marked spots. If this was an actual sliding puzzle like the kind that always stumped me as a kid,
and now, I probably would have found it more interesting. This also marks the return of the Mandibug stack. Probably still technically the worst boss in either of these games, but like, come on, it's at least a funny anticlimax. They were well aware of what they were doing with how this thing got set up. I apologize, I was not familiar with your game. Boss Blitz Galaxy Throwback Throwdown Speedrun. I'm really conflicted because on one hand, the timer adds a lot of tension to both Bouldergeist and Fiery Dino Piranha. I found myself really having to go all in on the former by using Starbits to spawn the Bomboos early, and the fire trails from the latter can severely limit your opportunities to attack. So those two were as great as expected, and I do think they benefit from being at the end of this gauntlet format. The other three though, I'm sorry, I like them under normal circumstances, but they are piss easy to do very quickly, and it feels like I'm going through the motions. Especially if I fumble on one of the last two and have to start over. It does apply less to King Caliente than the others, but not by much. It took me 2 tries to get through this one, and both times I ended up clearing past major burrows with 3.5 minutes left on the clock, which seems very much by design. Freezy Flake Galaxy Sorbetti's Chilly Reception. Sorbetti's a boss where I like everything surrounding him more than actually fighting him. His goofy design and facial expressions give me life, especially the look of complete anguish before he dies. And the reveal that he was the planetoid you were standing on right before the fight is sick. Shame he's one of the easiest bosses ever and doesn't have much going on to make up for that. The rock mushroom replacing the fire flower is a bit of a double-edged sword because while it is a nice way to change the level up, the music doesn't get overwritten by something that goes against the cozy vibe the level's trying to go for, and I like that the rock gets covered in snow as you roll around in it. Each sculpture stops you once you break it, which feels a lot more restrictive than letting loose an entire barrage of fireballs in all directions. A solid level all in all that could have been better. Haunty Hall's Galaxy, A Glimmer of Bulberry. I know the Bulberry is supposed to be the main draw and all, and that portion of the level is fine. I like the power up, though it's a bit of a short section, and this bit with the key is entirely unnecessary. The best bit to me though is with those disappearing moving platforms. It's fun to make your way through what's essentially an auto-scroller as you dodge around the Octoboos, especially when you can predict where the path will be and leap across ahead of it as it spawns. It's easy to mess up if you get carried away, which makes it that much more enjoyable. Fleet Glide Galaxy Fastest Feathers in the Galaxy. Fleet Glide is pretty easily my preferred of the two Fluzzard galaxies. That said, the one where you're racing the other bird doesn't do quite as much for me as the base level. It's pretty easy to do in the time limit, and the gates for the Comet Medal are no longer there, so it's just a straight shot to the end. Still fun to go through and all, it's a very exciting set piece, but I'm taking the base level any day of the week. Supermassive Galaxy in Full Bloom. Very random idea for a hidden star, but I very much dig it. The planetoid here is easy to overlook if you're speeding through the main level, so it rewards you for stopping to smell the flowers. Almost literally in this case. Turning this boring grass ball into a diverse flowery paradise is very satisfying, as is the vine climb to get to the star. Am I still bummed that Supermassive didn't have any more ideas and that this doesn't play into the galaxy's theme? Absolutely. Is it a slight drawback that the star is visible at points on the planet rather than spawning in after you've created all the flowers? Kind of. Does it come way too late after replaying most of the main level? Yup. Is this as good as the first game's golden chomp secret star? Not even close. Do I still like it? Without a doubt. Boulder Bowl Galaxy, Khmer Goomba. A pretty good hidden star for an idea that I honestly would have been down to see them use more often. The planet has enough danger to make you plan ahead for how you're going to find and get one of the presumably finite, Goombas to the Gearmo. It's an enjoyable introduction to this concept that is used better later in the game. As a bonus, it's one of the few stars where it makes me ponder long and hard about the ethics of it. Mario's trading this Goomba-like currency, and this is a living, sentient creature. They have portrayals showing that they're not just wild animals, they have families. Oh god, what have I done? Bowser Jr.'s Fiery Flotilla, Gobblegut's Aching Belly. The level itself is a solid first Grand Star mission, if nothing too super crazy or anything. Gobblegut is pretty tame as far as world finale bosses go, but he's still a ton of fun to fight. I'm always glad to see the rare occasions where Nintendo feels like bringing him back, either through a Minecraft skin or that one Mario Kart course that everyone points out is shaped like him. What was it called again? Oh right, yeah, Yoshi Circuit. Flash Black Galaxy, Jumping Around in the Dark. This is the only level out of the ones I played at night where I had to switch my lamp on, because the bright flashes between the constant darkness started to bother me almost immediately. After I got past that roadblock, I got to enjoy a a neat level with an interesting gimmick that doesn't excel at all too much in particular. I like the building maze with a blimp fruit for all the different paths you can take. I just happened to stumble across the one I didn't even remember led to the comet medal. And the ending silver star bit is kind of easy, but still not bad. Using Yoshi makes it even easier and takes half the fun out of it, so I just didn't. Spin Dig Galaxy Dig a Legs Planet introduces the spin drill quite well and ends up with a very solid boss fight on a 2D plane, with a design calling back to Mega Leg, my beloved. Probably should have had it higher on the boss ranking the more I reflect on it. I think I vaguely remember this one part giving young me a bit more trouble than I could reasonably justify. I also like this planetoid here because it seems easy to cheese with a triple jump, but if you meet the level on its own terms, then you get given a bunch of coins as a reward. Boulder Bowl Galaxy Rock and Rolladillo shows off the mechanics of the rock mushroom, what you can and can't break with it, and the fun of barreling through swarms of enemies very well, ending off with a boss fight that, while I probably gave a bit too much credit before for how simple it is still pretty enjoyable to dodge and roll into. It's a weaker boss than Dig-a-Leg, balanced out by introducing you to a more fun power-up. I'm gonna reuse the joke from 4 years ago where I say this level is rock solid and you are powerless to stop me. Bowser's Gravity Gauntlet breaking into Bowser's Castle. Potentially unpopular opinion here, I really love Galaxy 2's Bowser battles, aside from the one that deviates from the formula completely. The meteor stomping is a fun mechanic, and each one improves upon the last by bringing in extra hazards for you to worry about, this time being these shockwaves that Bowser's punches send out. It's a great fight that I wish had a stronger build up to it. The level itself is nowhere near bad. I enjoyed it, and it has memorable set pieces like this 2D water section. It's just really short and basic by Bowser standards and doesn't do too much to stick with me. Like, the first one of these has the Bowser door that you break open and prepare for the boss fight, then surprises you by revealing that there's still an entire section of the level left to go. This one has that same setup with the door after a short bit of the level, and so I expected it to lead to something more, then it plopped me straight in front of Bowser immediately. It all feels very been there, done that, and like it's only there out of an obligation. Still fun though. Flip Out Galaxy Wicked Wall Jumps. A great idea for a galaxy expanding upon a previously introduced mechanic that I wish they could have done more with. The bulk of the level is fun, but ultimately kinda standard and a bit underwhelming for the final one before the green stars. It does start to get very interesting in that final section, problem being it's the final section so it doesn't lead up to much. What a shame. Flip Out Galaxy Cosmic Clone Wall Jumpers. Same as before, only slightly trickier. I never felt like the presence of the clones tripped me up too much. They add to the level, as they do for basically all of their uses, just to a significantly more minuscule extent than the rest. It really does not feel like it's in line with the rest of World S difficulty-wise, or hell, even as a galaxy in general. The rest of these are callbacks to other Mario games. What the hell is this one doing here? Put it in Battle Belt's place in World 6 and have this spot be taken up with, I don't know, a Hotel Mario reference or something. Sweet Mystery Galaxy Bulberry's Purple Coin Glow. I tend to really enjoy the untimed, no restrictions exploration-based purple coin missions. They can be very relaxing and enjoyable to go through. Sweet Mysteries is comparatively in a bit of a weird spot, because yes, it is very nice and calming to go through collecting these coins at a leisurely pace and soaking in the wonderful atmosphere. Very much a fan of playing through this level. Problem being that this isn't exactly an explorable galaxy. It's a linear set of platforming challenges with a Bulberry, so there isn't exactly much to discover or any other paths you can set off on. It's a good level, held back from being amazing by the structure of the galaxy it's in. Right Side Down Galaxy The Great Crate Incinerator. I do not understand how the crate burning missions are seen as super difficult and frustrating. The trash exploding stars from Galaxy 1 I get, even if I don't find myself quite as bothered. These ones on the other hand are way easier and more in your control without frustratingly long bomb countdowns. The timer is short enough to where you have to really be on the ball, which makes it decently tense, but not so short that it feels like it's down to luck. I really like this mission, and there's an even better version of it coming up later on. Freezy Flake Galaxy Bowser on Ice. God, this galaxy sets such an amazingly cozy mood. Unsurprising given my love for snow themings. Shame that the Fire Flower theme has to interrupt that. At least it's fun to melt all the snow sculptures, including this set of snow bricks which cleverly hide the comet medal. I also quite enjoy the slide, and that final bit with the big big Bowser statue in the middle is a nice way to close out in spite of how cheesable it is. Flipsville Galaxy, Flipsville's new digs. The spin drill was such a natural fit for the mechanics of Flipsville. The level is every bit as solid as the first, except instead of ending on the lamest boss in the game, you've got a pretty neat silver star collecting bit that serves as the basis for a far better level later. Sky Station Galaxy, Pee-wee Piranha's Temper Tantrum. God, what a great intro. From the moment you land, the music sets the adventurous tone of the rest of the game phenomenally. For how simple the tutorial platforming is, the level manages to be very explorable and somewhat open-ended. Whether you're skipping ahead to the top of this building, riding these stone roadblocks, or finding your own way to climb this vertical bit away from where the Luma leads you, the option is always there for you to figure out other routes. All as the enemies gradually scale higher in deadliness, from the Galoombas to the Goombas to the projectile shooting Octoombas and Paragoombas over ledges. The boss fight is admittedly very derivative of Dino Piranha, and smacking it on the ass is nowhere near as satisfying as the elastic snap of Dino Piranha's tail. But Pee-wee is certainly a much less easy to blitz through in 10 seconds boss than his predecessor, so I can give him somewhat of a pass. This opening level nails what it sets out to do, only ranking relatively low in this stacked competition since it's comparatively basic as you'd expect from a tutorial. Right Side Down Galaxy, Breaking the Laws of Gravity. While I like the switching gravity mechanic, it's even more fun to try and complete the level without switching it at all as an extra challenge. I like how it's a 2D level for the most part, except for that one bit that puts you back on a 3D plane, and it has the swap hoppers which are a great fit for the gravity gimmick. The star location is very cute, one of my favourites in the game in that regard actually. It makes it very fun to fly around and grab it. Upside Dizzy Galaxy, a Walk on the Weird Side. It expands on the gimmick of Right Side Down with set parts that change automatically, and I do slightly prefer it for being that little bit more complex. Not by much though, these are pretty neck and neck to me. Bowser's Lava Lair Speedrun. This loses out on the Great Bowser fight, which is a bit of a shame, but I get that narratively I don't want to be fighting Bowser for a regular power star. Those battles have got to feel big. The level beforehand is still great, and I vastly prefer the renewable time speedrun comments over the basic set limits, but I can't say this added to the repeat journey through the level for me. The timer didn't feel nearly as tight to me as even some ones from earlier levels. Fluffy Bluff Galaxy, Search for the Toad Brigade Captain. A great introduction to the best non-Yoshi power-up in the game. It only keeps that title because they cut the ice flower. It naturally introduces the mechanics of the platforms to you, and gives you space to experiment with it while putting enough water in the area for you to figure out that gets rid of the form. There's even a fun cosmic clone bit that forces you to lose it. One drawback it does have is how plentiful the flower is, especially with how little it's actually needed. I get that it's an early game level, but I still feel they could have gotten away with being a little bit sparser with them. Boo Moon Galaxy, Haunting the Howling Tower. I found myself getting a bit more annoyed with the maze planet compared to the first level because it felt like the way out wasn't appearing anywhere. Then it turned out I had walked away from the exit because I saw the doors and thought I'd looped back around to where I started. I might just be stupid. The rest of the level serves as the unfortunately only use of the Boo Mushroom, a criminally underutilized power-up across both Galaxy games. The segment for it in this level is great, then you complete it and that's it, no more Boo Mario for you. As much as I enjoy threading between the Octoboos, was this really all they could think of to use it for? There aren't even any boos to thirst over you this time, what a ripoff. Yoshi Star Galaxy, Saddle Up with Yoshi. I'll never not associate this level with the old UK trailer for the game where the guy goes,
"Mario and Yoshi are back."
I keep forgetting that's how some British people say it, even though I think most of my family does. Anyway, yeah, great level. Very basic since it's supposed to be a tutorial and all. Doesn't detract from how fun it is to figure out all the Green Dino's mechanics. They give you a nice open field to play around with them in, before a fairly satisfying platforming section to close the level off. The exploding volcano during the launch star is cinema. Clockwork Ruins Galaxy, Time for Adventure. Oh hey, it's been a while since we ran into Clockwork Ruins. I almost forgot how shit the other 2/3 of it are. The big spinny platform set piece is still a nuisance to trudge through in this one. I mean, they're cool in theory, but they did test my patience. Thankfully, you don't need to grind for coins in this one, so you're not on them for nearly as long, making this the highlight of the Galaxy by default. I love the bit where the walls trying to push you out where you flip the gravity and make the journey back by walking over the significantly more dangerous flooring, and the Indiana Jones-like finale with the giant boulders you have to avoid crushing you is super cool, especially when you get to ride on top of them. Even if you don't figure that out with a comet medal, it's mandatory to get to the star at the end so you still get to have fun riding one. Man, what a great start to Clockwork Ruins. I hope they do literally nothing else with it. Fleet Glide Galaxy, Fluzzard's Wild Battlefield Glide. What if we took Fluzzard and put him in a far more exciting setting? I mean, the jungle's nice and all, but it cannot compete with a collapsing rocket ship with so many more obstacles to avoid. From pillars to magmarks to thwomps to this closing door that forces you to pick up the pace so that you can make it out in time. And the big drop that you can nosedive down super fast? Oh man, what a ride. Fluzzard is still far from my favourite mechanic in the game, but the thrilling and dynamic set piece sells me on this one enough to say that I actually had a great time going back to it on this replay. Something I never would have dreamed of seeing when I played the game growing up. Rolling Masterpiece Galaxy Silver Chomp Grudge Match. Similarly to Fluzzard, I find the rolling ball missions to be quite enjoyable, if not among the game's many highlights. This galaxy doesn't have any super frustrating uses of it or anything, just a lovely arts and crafts themed world with a silver chomp fight better than half of the game's bosses. Love how the momentum that you build up trying to knock it off can easily be your undoing if you get carried away near the edge. Rolling Masterpiece Galaxy Masterpiece Speedrun. And I don't have a ton different to say about the Comet version. It's got just enough changes for it to not feel like too much of a rehash. There's a new section with some music notes that are very fun to go for, and they changed the location of the key on the paintbrush planet so you can't just instinctively go to where it was before. The time limit's a good challenge without being so tight as to be unfair, especially with how difficult these rolling ball missions seem to be for a lot of people. Supermassive Galaxy Huge Trouble with Big Wigglers. This is a galaxy that felt like it was destined to be more than it ended up being. It's a great foundation for taking a conceptually basic level and changing the vibe of it completely by scaling everything up. It's not even that crazy gameplay-wise, just very novel to see all these massive enemies and planetoids made out of regular items. The thwomps feel especially deadly with their sheer size, and the final Wiggler section stands out as the highlight to me. The speed of the red ones makes long jumping over to them quite unsafe. Shout out to the Infinite Life Farm. Space Storm Galaxy, the top of Topman's Tower. I find this one way more fun to do without slowing time. It's a great vertical tower climb reminiscent of Boy Base that I had a ton of fun completing, and I'm so glad that it doesn't end with another top maniac fight. 4 times was more than enough in the first game. I am perfectly content with never seeing him again. Still wish the ending was a bit stronger than spin a couple top men into a small electric field and call it a day though. Beat Block Galaxy Step to the Beat. Maybe a bit too easy to walk on the midpoint between some of the platforms so that you're safe no matter what ones are active at some parts. For the majority though, this is a fun gimmick for a level that doesn't overstay its welcome. The pyramid at the end is a neat way to close out, and I appreciate that the Wiimote makes the beat noise so that you don't have to worry about the other game audio drowning out the music. Beat Block Galaxy, Silver Stars, and Double Time. Slightly more interesting at 2 times speed, I guess. Can't say that I fully get behind Yoshi's inclusion, but I can just choose to not use him, which you probably expected by this point. Lack of enemies is a shame though. Maybe it's because loading them in and out that quickly would cause problems for the console? I don't know. Great level either way that's both better and worse than the original. Stone Cyclone Galaxy, Silver Stars on the Cyclone. There are 2 reasons I tend to see for why people generally don't like Stone Cyclone. One is that they just don't think this individual section of Beach Bowl is all that compelling as an entire standalone galaxy, which is totally fair. I'd even agree to some extent. It's very much a one-trick pony, and the theming isn't anything to write home about. The other is a proficiency deficiency. Don't get me wrong, the difficulty of the level can be frustrating, but that spiked level of challenge is what I live for in World S. I find this level a ton of fun, especially trying to do it without the time slow switch. It's not even like I can put forward a detailed defense on why I like this level. You either find the relatively much harder settings satisfying or annoying. I definitely fall more in with the former, but I can see why this isn't looked upon very favourably in pretty much any other ranking that I've seen. Sweet Mystery Galaxy, Bulberry's Mysterious Glow. A nice simple stroll through a level with some of my favourite theming in the game. The Bulberry is already such a cool power-up, so combining it with invisible cookie platforms and letting you see the sweets through the wrappers is a recipe for success. Admittedly, this is more of a vibes level than anything super insanely compelling on a gameplay front, and even then it's far from the level of space junk, but man are those vibes immaculate. And the platforming while keeping an ear out for your Bulberry timer is very satisfying. I mean, aside from the green tile section, which is kind of whatever. I don't care though. I get to end with invisible cake. This is the greatest day of my life. Flip Swap Galaxy, think before you shake. Surprisingly, I find the use of the gimmick here a bit more compelling than in Flip Out. I mean, the start is just fine, it demonstrates the concept well by giving you a crystal to break, but once it gets to the electric fence, and especially the chomp spawning in, this gets a lot more interesting with how you have to be mindful of the hazards, how the current layout will impact your route, and when you should reposition yourself in the air. Not exactly a grueling challenge, yet it did give me pause a few times. I've also seen videos of people much better at the game than me finding more creative ways through the level, which is pretty neat. Rolling Coaster Galaxy, the Rainbow Road Roll. A great tribute to the Rainbow Roads from Mario Kart. If only the music followed suit and worked in one of their melodies. Especially after Mario Kart Wii used the Good Egg theme for its Rainbow Road. It looks beautiful, it's satisfyingly tricky, the Comet Medal is maybe the most evil in the entire game. I love going through this one. I remember it being the bane of my existence as a kid, though now I found it way easier. I know that's to be expected with more experience under my belt, still didn't expect to clear it in one try while going down the Comet Medal path. I suppose I'm simply too good at video games. Mario Squared Galaxy, make Mario a star. Well, this is a great way to close a level out. I don't think it quite stands out as one of the best galaxies without anything else surrounding it. Frankly, it seems like it's only there so that they had an excuse to bring back Luigi's purple coins. Regardless, this is a banger level. It's all about planning your route and taking the optimal one before the path becomes too dangerous to go back over. And the enemies that are there to stop you in your tracks do a lot to spice things up. All in service of giving Mario the nastiest illness I think I've ever seen. Poor guy. Spin Dig Galaxy, Dig-a-Legs Daredevil Run. An already good boss made great by the Daredevil restriction. I don't have a ton to say about this one, it's pretty simple. Though I don't think it's quite tricky enough to be one of the more satisfying Daredevil comets to beat. Just barely misses out on the A tier, what a shame. How about we see what did make the cut? And you can presumably be mad at me for putting a level you don't like too high. I don't know what the consensus is on most of these, but surely there's got to be at least one hot take in there. Chompworks Galaxy, spring into the Chompworks. Okay, so full transparency, I might be artificially boosting this one higher because of a self-imposed challenge. See, this is the one level in the game that uses the Spring Mushroom, a power-up that I don't dislike nearly as much as everyone else seems to. It can be fun when applied properly, and this level does that, I'd say. The uses of it aren't frustrating, and the vertical platforming at the end is quite enjoyable, playing very well into the Spring's strengths. What boosts this star higher is that it's possible to get the star without using the Spring Mushroom at all. No matter how impractical it may be, you can choose to ignore it and make its presence in this game entirely obsolete, which even if I'm not among the form's haters is still really funny. And holy shit, that final tower section is kinda brutal to do as base Mario. You're locked to a 2D plane so you can't use the back wall as something to jump off. It was tough and made things needlessly difficult on myself, but I stuck it out, and after about 15 to 20 minutes, I got one of the most satisfying star grabs in the game. To put it to you another way, this is the only time in my replay where I was so locked in that there was sweat on my controller afterwards. The perfect run didn't even do that. Probably elevates this otherwise still good level way higher than it deserves. Upside Dizzy Galaxy, burning Upside Dizzy. Same thoughts as the previous box burning mission, except a good deal tougher, so I like it way more. Still don't see how these are seen as some of the most infamously difficult challenges in the game. I did it with Luigi's slippery shoes and still managed in only a few attempts. You just gotta not have a proficiency deficiency. Yoshi Star Galaxy, Spiny Control. It's more Yoshi, so it's fun by default. This time introducing the fun mechanic of grabbing Spinies and spitting them back out. It all leads up to a simple yet mechanically satisfying boss fight that reminds me of Lightning Rod Skylander, my beloved. There's also a special alternate path that I don't really understand the inclusion of, but it's neat anyway. Cosmic Cove Galaxy, catch that Star Bunny. Realistically, this one's so short and easy that I probably shouldn't rank it so high, but I get to spend more time in Cosmic Cove, so I can hardly complain. Exploring the waters for coins to feed the hungry Luma is nice and chill. They're neither too grindy, nor too plentiful to where you'll reach the relatively low count without trying to. The planet you go to is admittedly cooler in concept than execution. I caught the bunny pretty quickly once I froze the water over, and yeah, I still had a lot of fun skating around and avoiding the massive gaps of death. And if you want more difficulty, just don't freeze the water, I guess, I don't know. Cloudy Court Galaxy, Silver Stars in the Purple Pond. This one is in essence a Daredevil run, because if you get hit by the clones once, then you lose the cloud suit and you're cooked. Thankfully, I did it in one try because I'm just that good. The pressure added by the cosmic clones following behind you and the limited amount of times you can use the cloud platforms to cross large gaps turn a fairly standard and basic Silver Star mission into one where I had a blast. Space Storm Galaxy, Follow Me Bob-omb marks a turning point in the game's tone where many of the galaxies in the final two worlds feel significantly more serious and dangerous. This one in particular really gives you the impression that you're finally making it into Bowser's home territory thanks to its space station aesthetic. As another plus, it's got some great uses of Bob-ombs. The segment where you have to lead it to break the glass is so simple in concept, but it forces you to pay attention to both the bomb so it doesn't fall off the edge, and your own positioning so that you don't run into an electric fence. The topmen even serve as solid hazards in the next section, because they can easily knock you into a zapper or a black hole if you're not careful. The final bit is solid too, if maybe a bit easier than I would have liked. Tall Trunk Galaxy, the Flotacious Blimp Fruit. The twisty set pieces and huge focus on verticality are perfectly suited to show off the Blimp Fruit. Probably my least favourite Yoshi power-up to use, but it's certainly got more chances to show off than the Bulberry, and it's still very fun in its own right. I don't have much else to say on this one, besides how it shows how good Tall Trunk is as a galaxy that this is its weakest mission by far. I wonder what the others have that this one is missing. Boo Moon Galaxy, the Star in the Sinking Swamp. A genius spot for a hidden star. Placed just far enough out of view to where you won't see it while approaching the launch star, but you will see the edge of some snake blocks right as you're about to take off. Going for this one as Luigi was an absolute nightmare, so I didn't. I ended up needing to go do something, so I turned the game off. Then when I got back, I decided I'd stick with Mario. And wouldn't you know it, I got it pretty much immediately. Shiverburn Galaxy, Octo Army Icy Rainbow Romp. Okay, I normally hate this phrase, but am I the only one who really enjoys the romp comments? Most of the reactions I see to them tend to be on the negative side. I don't know what to say other than I find it fun to take out a bunch of enemies in quick succession. It works when it's a little one-off time challenge and not the basis for the whole galaxy. Is this one easy? Very much so. Would I have preferred a Daredevil run back with Prince Picante? 100%. Counterpoint, I get to be Rainbow Mario when I skate my way through a bunch of whatever those things are and I like that. Flipsville Galaxy, Purple Coin Spin Speedrun. This seems more unforgiving than it actually is. Normally I'd advocate for a more narrow window to complete a purple coin mission, but I can make an exception here. When the timing of the gravity changes is out of the player's control, giving a bit more wiggle room is the right play. It gives you more of a chance to find your own way through instead of having to rigidly stick to one preset path, while still being harsh enough to where you have to always be planning your next few steps. I did it in one try and it felt so good. Boulder Bowl Galaxy, Rolling Crabber Romp. Initially seems like it'll be easier than it is. As you first barrel through with a rock mushroom, you see the number in the corner go up and might start to get a bit cocky thinking you've got it in the bag. Then as there are fewer left to hit, you start to slow down in how many you're taking out at once since they won't be in alignment, and suddenly you've only got a little bit of time left to finish the last few. It's a really well designed romp mission with a creative use of the rock mushroom and the perfect choice of enemy for you to have to take out. If you're down to the wire and have one or two left but get the power up knocked out of you, it gives you that split-second decision of whether you go back for another power-up or try to take them out in base form, which means you have to outmaneuver and go behind them to do so. I've found myself in that position a few times now and it's super thrilling. Bowser's Gravity Gauntlet, Gravity Star Speedrun. I mentioned that the base level was really short and felt like it was only there out of obligation, right? Crazy how much the vibe changes when a time limit's introduced. At first I thought it was maybe a little too generous with the clocks, then after more reflection I realised how easy it is to lose time here. Mistakes in the 2D fireball section could easily have a domino effect, and the underwater bit can be nerve-wracking if your time starts to run low. It massively elevates a level that I wasn't head over heels for before, and is one of the best showings of how these kinds of speedy comets are far superior to the ones with a set countdown. Slipsand Galaxy, Squizzard's Sandy Sinkhole. Starts off solid enough, which is high praise for me when directed at a Mario desert level. The sand streams aren't a half bad gimmick, and the skybox does a lot to make this aesthetic pop more than the theme normally would. Then you get to the slide and all of a sudden the level becomes shockingly amazing. The slippery controls are just loose enough to make dodging these rolling stones without falling off an engaging challenge, while not going so far as to be unfun and impossible to control. And you close the level out with Squizzard, who's a surprisingly stellar boss. I'll talk more about him in a later segment. For now, I'll say that he's only a few tweaks away from standing alongside the best bosses in the game. Honey Hop Galaxy, the sweetest silver stars. For as much as this feels like a retread of Honey Hive narratively, it still manages to fulfill the purpose it needs to while having a different enough layout to set itself apart. The floaty fluffs and silver stars in particular give this mission plenty of its own identity, as does the increased amount of water to make you watch your step as B Mario. Speaking of, I just found out on this replay that landing a spin as B Mario lets you soar way higher. I don't remember either game explaining that. Is this common knowledge and I'm just stupid? It's made the form way more fun to use, and I already liked it a lot in the first place. And yeah, the level itself is also very pleasant and lively. I like going around and meeting all the bees, working my way up to the one that everyone gets upsettingly freaky for. Honeybloom Galaxy, Bumble Beginnings. Whoa, this is a surprise to see so high. I hardly remembered this one before, but it turns out I kinda love it. It's got impeccable theming and stands out for how it's restricted to the 2D plane. It doesn't put all its honey in that one beehive though. There's a ton going on here between the enemies hardly seen anywhere else, the temporary platforms, and the absolute joy of flying around as Bee Mario. I'd argue that this galaxy makes at least a contender for the best use of the bee mushroom in the whole duology, giving you a ton of mid-air coins and these bouncy ball things to help regain your typically limited flight meter, allowing you to maintain your airtime for even longer. This was unexpectedly fun, and I'll be looking forward to going back to it during any future replays. I've overlooked it for way too long. Yoshi Star Galaxy, Spiny Rainbow Romp. This one doesn't have ice skating, so you'd think I'd rank this lower than Shiverburn. But what this lacks in that kind of mobility, it makes up for in being deceptively tricky for an early game galaxy. With how much more spread out the enemies are and the fact that Rainbow Mario can still be slowed by water and mud, it gives this a lot more merit as a challenge to do in the time limit. I had to be properly focused for this one. And of course I had a blast running through swarms of Spinies and getting as high of a combo as I could. It's one of the most simple ways for the game to get the dopamine going. Space Storm Galaxy, Khmer Top Man. Some might look at this star and see a repeat mission. I look at it and see taking an already great one and keeping all the highlights except replacing the weakest part with a great segment where you have to do another ethically questionable trade with a Gearmo. This expands upon the Goomba one so well by putting you in a much more perilous environment. Remember before when I said that the Top Men and Top Minis were fairly effective hazards next to all these zappers and holes? And how the Bob-omb segment forces you to pay attention to multiple things at once? Yeah, if you focus too much on the Top Man that you have to guide, the Top Minis can fuck your day up, and it makes this escort really exciting. Flip Swap Galaxy, Purple Coin Flip and Sprint. In theory, this is about the same level as the Sweet Mystery Purple Coins without having nearly that same rich atmosphere. To make up for that, this is significantly more interesting to actually play. You've got one linear path to go down where you have to collect every single coin before the timer runs out. This adds a fair bit of pressure because it means you have to cover most ground in the level while being extremely limited in when you can use your spin to course correct if you try to move faster through the air. The hazards forcing you to wait at parts can further increase that pressure, especially those damn chomps that block off entire paths for brief periods. It's an already great level made even better by how it adds in time management and an extra bit of spatial awareness that I absolutely adore. Cosmic Cove Galaxy, Exploring the Cosmic Cavern. Gotta love the water being frozen as a continuation from when you last visited this incredible galaxy. It means you get to ice skate, and at this point I don't think I need to say how I feel about that. The penguins having their own fun is such a charming detail. This is followed on from with the 2D swimming bit, which is great in its own right. It doesn't feel too slow at all. The anti-gravity bit is an especially cool set piece. The final planetoid on the other hand, while a solid way to close out, just doesn't stick out to me as much as everything else. I don't know if this is the kind of galaxy that really benefited from having the spin drill, and it doesn't use it in any especially memorable ways. At least the pick-a-path stuff isn't too bothersome, because you get a view of the other side and where you generally need to be digging at. And credit where it's due, it is cool when you release all the water at the end. Sky Station Galaxy, Storming the Sky Fleet. The game's first big epic set piece that holds up extremely well in spite of how relatively simple it is. Again though, it's the second star in the game. I can cut it some slack. This ups the intensity a lot from Pee-wee with the giant planetoid you infiltrate and the bonsai bills that get fired out at you. It also introduces the cosmic clones in one of their tamer appearances, and more notably the green plant, where you have an area to practice with them before they become mandatory later. You can even use them to fight back against the bonsai bills if you think to do so. Slipsand Galaxy, sailing the sandy seas. Another case where the opening is just good, not exceptional or anything. This room here experiments with gravity in a way that could have been really cool to see expanded upon as the basis for a full mission. None of that matters though when you land on that fucking bird that Sunshine players hate. What an incredible set piece that has so many moving parts for you to keep track of. The approaching cacti, the Magikoopas launching fire, which tiles of the sandbird are currently gone, how long until they come back, all things that force you to be constantly aware of where you are and whether anything will get in the way of where you need to be. It's all capped off with the silver chomp spawning in, which, I shit you not, is one of the few things that forced me to sit upright as I dodged around it homing in on me and destroying most of the platform. Tragic that I can't just say desert level therefore and move on like I would with your typical Mario Kart desert track. They make excellent use of the theming for creative and compelling level design. I apologize, Slipsand, I was not familiar with your game. Throwback Galaxy, Silver Stars, and the Womp Fortress. One of the most charming details in the entire game is that the Silver Stars here were placed by the Bob-omb buddies to give you a fun little scavenger hunt as a thanks for freeing them from the Womp King. I already adored Throwback Galaxy, so having an excuse to explore it at a leisurely pace was delightful. Only things I wish they would have added were some of the other parts of the stage that didn't make it to this version, like the floating cages or the top of the tower. Blue Moon Galaxy, Silver Stars pop-up. For as quickly as I breezed through this star, it had a lot of standout set pieces that I think are going to stick with me. This maze planet is a fun way to have you find the first launch star, the poison swamp keeps you on your toes, the tiny tilting moon makes this feel like part of a picture book, and that's doubled down on with a pop-up building at the very end. Very much appreciate the boos that you can't kill so that the Silver Stars aren't completely mindless. Flash Black Galaxy, Dark Octo Army Romp. Well, where did this come from? From the outset, I thought this would be fairly unremarkable as far as the romp missions go. I mean, there's no power-up or ice skating in this one, so it seemed like it would be kinda slow in comparison. And yeah, that's where it excels. You can't just blitz through it. You have to methodically take each enemy out while operating under a time limit. And this doesn't ditch the flashing gimmick either. You have to remember where you can go between each one if you want to stay on track to finishing in time. If you try to rush through without thinking or get caught off guard by a stray rock, you can easily find yourself falling to your death. Be too cautious though and you'll take too long to make it to the end. It's easily the romp mission I found the toughest and the most fun to complete. Boss Blitz Galaxy, Throwback Throwdown. Crazy how the gimmick of Battle Belt works when it's on fully developed boss fights and not just ground pound 3 Jackal Goombas. Some might call this a lazy rehash. I call it a loving collection of the most iconic bosses from the first game, serving as the perfect final throwback for this bonus world built on callbacks and singularly focused challenge stages. I get that this isn't the most amazingly stellar lineup on average, but I don't care. It's them, it's the boss fights that I like. I remember who they are, and also it's about as perfect of a selection of 5 as you could pick. The rest are all either worse or tied directly to Bowser, with the sole exception of Kingfin, who would have been a bit worse off due to the underwater spinning nerfs. Still would have liked to see him, I can live without him though. To briefly run through what I think of all 5 of these, Dino Piranha's a solid warm-up, mechanically satisfying enough to make up for how he's as difficult to push over as a cardboard cutout. King Caliente has maybe my favourite arena of the lot, and I like knocking the coconuts back at him. His relatively low placement in my old boss ranking is mainly down to how lame I found the context of his run back in Galaxy 1. I'd place him a bit higher without that context. On the opposite end we have Major Burrows, who I think I gave too much credit before. I like him, he's a big silly goober and timing the ground pounds is fun. A tier though? Bit of a shout for how little there is to him. Maybe he was nerfed between games? I don't know, either way he's easier than I remember. I might have just given him bonus points for scaring the shit out of 6-year-old me. But another boss accomplished that while also being way better. Speaking of, Bouldergeist my beloved, oh how I missed you. This is the only use of Bombus in the game, so first timers will have to figure that out all as Bouldergeist raises sharp rocks and summons hands to make himself harder to hit. He also throws rocks at people, so he just like me for real. Easily brings this roster up significantly since he's my favourite boss in Galaxy 1. The only real contender to his throne being Fiery Dino Piranha. Oh, would you look at that? There he is, filling the same full circle role within this gauntlet as he does for the entire first game. What if Dino Piranha wasn't just not piss easy and could actually defend himself, but could also leave trails of fire and shoot projectiles to make this something I actually have to pay attention to beat? Those few changes turn this coughing baby into a hydrogen, well, still baby technically. He and Boulder go
wrote together form an unstoppable dream team, and alone make this one of my favourite World S missions, with the other Three Stooges being nice to see as well. Slipsand Galaxy, Squizzard's Daredevil run. Now we can talk a bit more about Squizzard. My only real issues with this fight are how easy it is to out projectile spam him with your own stuff, and how insignificant the bombs feel. Give him a few different throwing styles to where some of his spikes can go over the range of your fireballs, make the bomb explosions bigger. There you go, you have one of the best Galaxy bosses ever made, because basically everything else about him is perfect. This is easily the mission to benefit the most from how the Fire Flower is timed now, since you have to be aware of how long you've got before it runs out and you have to go find another one, which means stepping off whatever safe space you're on and fighting against the moving sand as you dodge Squizzard's attacks. As an added bonus, the Fire Flower doesn't overwrite the boss battle music. They instead account for that and add another layer of instruments on top of it. Oh yeah, and goes without saying the 1 HP limit makes the Daredevil run even better. Sky Station Galaxy, Pee-wee Piranha speedrun. I'm surprised at how strict the time limit is here. I thought I could just breeze through this one with no danger for it being based around the first level and all. I ended up having to properly lock in after failing twice. Had plenty of a safety net after I did that, but the fact I needed to do it at all was a pleasant surprise. I really like how the quicker routes through the level you could have explored previously now have their chance to fully pay off here. Pee-wee's also way better suited to a speedrun mission than Dino Piranha ever was. Fluffy Bluff Galaxy, the Chimp Stomp Challenge. This is where you'll notice that I haven't mentioned any chimp missions before this. He's the coolest monkey in all of Mario, and I love him very much. When Funky Kong talks, I cheer. When the chimp talks, I shut up and listen. I will be there no matter what whenever he has a new high score challenge for me. Racking up large combos and trying to get as many points as possible just makes for a lot of simple fun. It's essentially a romp mission with an extra way to quantify how well you did that you can try to outdo for some extra replayability. Fantastic indeed, old friend. Slimy Spring Galaxy, the Chimp's Coin Challenge. The most flawed chimp mission since it's one of the easier ones, and aiming the shell light can be a bit awkward. I also don't know how I feel about this taking the serene atmosphere of Slimy Spring and going in the opposite direction. I don't care though, because I love this stupid ape and I will keep looking forward to his challenges until I drop dead. Taking out entire rooms of enemies is still a blast, and this even feels like one of the most open-ended in how you can approach it. There's more than enough points scattered across the level, so do you want to get as far through as possible, taking out foes as you pass by, or do you go for the slower approach of methodically taking out everything in each room? That's all down to you, and I have fun no matter which one I do. Freezy Flake Galaxy, the Chimp Skating Challenge. Okay, last chimp one in a row, I promise. This one has ice skating. You can probably make a drinking game out of me saying that I like doing that in this video, but I'm not taking responsibility for any of the consequences. It's not tough to beat, but it's not so easy as to be mindless, and getting into a rhythm is a lot of fun. Mario Squared Galaxy, Luigi's Purple Coin Chaos. Okay, so I'm of the opinion that, while I agree with it being one of the best missions in Galaxy 1, the difficulty of the original Luigi's Purple Coins is a bit overhyped. I had a lot less trouble as soon as I realized I only needed to collect 2/3 of the available coins rather than all of them. Galaxy 2 adds things that on paper make it much harder. You have a minute less on the clock, those 50 extra coins to give you some wiggle room are now gone, and they threw in the cosmic clone so that you can no longer stop and look around. You have to rotate the camera and plan where to go next while remaining on the move. All fantastic additions, very much appreciated. The arena itself is a bit weaker though, since the yellow platforms no longer spin when you first make contact with them, so you're given a fair bit of safe space as opposed to the original where every panel became dangerous after you pass by it once. The reduced timer also doesn't feel like it matters when it cuts out after you collect the coins, so that frantic feeling of, oh shit, I need to make it back to where I started and I'm almost out of time, isn't there anymore. It's still an incredible mission with a creative concept and one of the game's most memorable set pieces, with some definite improvements being made, yet the changes overall I feel are a net negative compared to how it used to be. Starshine Beach Galaxy, Climbing the Cloudy Tower. One of the most telling showings of a level's quality for me is that after I got to the end, instead of picking the star up straight away, I went back and played around with the Cloudflower, trying to see if I could make it to the final platform without using the lily pads. I didn't end up managing, but I also didn't get bored during the probably 5 5 extra minutes that I wasted. Everything beforehand is great too. I love how this takes you under the water briefly, and the abundance of it makes this a great galaxy for the cloud suit. It's relatively rare, so you have to be much more mindful about when you use your platforms. Shame that the chucksters end up being a bit underutilized. It's cool to see them, I just wish they weren't completely superfluous and actually got to be used in the level design. Bowser's Lava Lair, Bowser's Big Lava Power Party. A great warm-up level for Bowser that feels far deadlier than anything that came before it by the end of World 2. I don't have a ton to say on the level leading up to the boss, other than, again, I do like how the door you think will be the boss isn't really the end. Said showdown with Bowser is fantastic. I see some flack thrown to the Bowser fights in this game, and I don't get that at all. I love dodging around his meteors and punches as he towers over me on this small rock, eventually throwing in his fire breath to further limit my mobility. The meteor stomping is a cool mechanic for landing hits on him, and you need to land 4 hits rather than your usual 3, which makes him last a decent bit longer, though this is only the warm-up stage. The future battles expand upon it a good bit, and we'll be seeing the last of those soon. Shiverburn Galaxy, the Chimp's Ultimate Skating Challenge. Same thoughts as the one in Freezy Flake, except this one is noticeably tougher thanks to the higher score requirement and more spiky things to throw you off. It's just fun, man, I don't know what else you want from me. I can only say the chimp is based and ice skating is fun so many times. Melty Monster Galaxy, the Chimp's Bowling Challenge. Using Rock Mario as a bowling ball is the kind of creativity I live for in these games. This one admittedly takes a bit to get interesting since the changes in the first few rounds are entirely superfluous. Then once you start getting further, it all shifts. It stops dropping you directly where you can just let it rip immediately and get another strike. The platforms are suddenly used as far more effective obstacles and you need to time when you go. You might miss a few and think, nah, it'll be fine, and then realize how little room for error there is with the score requirement. It's far and away the hardest chimp star, which I was not expecting at all, making it far more satisfying to beat than I expected based on those first few middling segments. Bowser's Galaxy Generator, Bowser's Big Bad Speedrun. Same stellar level we haven't gotten to yet, except with a time limit that's more forgiving than most. I made several mistakes and missed a few of the clocks, but still made it to the end with about 10 seconds left to spare. I'm a little let down by the removal of the bells and the peak soundtrack, but all I need to do to shift things back to being overwhelmingly positive is that it's Bowser's Galaxy Generator. You'd have to screw up a lot worse than this to make it not fantastic. The time limit is forgiving, but ultimately still a fun way to shake things up, especially with the lack of checkpoints. Starshine Beach Galaxy, Surf Sand, and Silver Stars. I adore the atmosphere in this galaxy so much. It's a relaxing and joyous journey across this beach as you collect the silver stars. Even as someone who hasn't played Sunshine, the piranhas showing up put a big smile on my face. And Yoshi's power-ups are used super well where you have to run on water and float through the sky. Chaining them together is so satisfying. I do wish the underwater section was utilized a bit more, but they do have the Comet Medal there, so it's not entirely pointless at least. Hightail Falls Galaxy, Hightail Falls Speedrun. If I didn't dislike the arbitrary fixed time limits on these kinds of comets without them at least being challenging enough to make up for that, I'd put this way higher, because you've got an already impeccable level that's just been made more difficult. The Meteor Storm and Broken Flooring give it a completely different kind of vibe, which is great, but I think it needed more urgency on that time limit to stand alongside the original level. Despite making several calamitous blunders, I still finished with over a minute left on the clock. Bowser's Galaxy Generator, Bowser's Fortified Fortress. It's not an S tier for the exact reason you think, which is unfortunate because the rest of the level is pristine. It's a culmination of your entire journey, bringing back most of the game's new power-ups and having a ton of variety in the mechanics and enemies you fight. It's also home to several of the game's most standout settings. The bonsai bills that you have to avoid as you take the spin drill down their line of fire. The hallway that closes in on you, which the dash pepper only barely gets you out of in time. The snake block rides that you have to jump between as the magmars that emerge from the lava sea jump scare you and make sure you're paying attention. The Comet Medal that mandates doing this part without getting hit a single time, so you have to really be on the ball. All scored by one of the game's best songs, and capped off with an even harder Bowser fight that gives you more shockwaves to dodge and smaller windows to hit him in. It's perfect, down to the last minute detail. Then Bowser comes back and the real final boss kinda sucks. Shame, because the surprise is genuinely unexpected. The setting with no footing beneath you besides the meteors you launch is awesome. The music sets the stage flawlessly, and then it's over in the time it took me to say that. It's not challenging, it's way simpler than his previous battles. Even as a kid, I didn't like this fight. Let me put it to you another way. When I was but a wee lad, I was quite shit at games, to the point where I don't think I even completed the story of New Super Wii. I still found Bowser here so easy that I would repeatedly go back and see how many times I could beat him before I ended up taking a single hit. And it only happened after I purposefully slowed down to see if he even did anything. Even in the event you do somehow get hit, the meteors spawn coins anyway, so you'd have to either be horribly unlucky or actively trying to lose. This one big blemish holds the final story level back from what could have been a spot in the top 5, because everything else here is the game firing on all cylinders to provide one of the best experiences it can. Tragic that they face-planted towards the end. But at least once that's all done, you get rewarded with a special Grand Star animation, final cutscene, and credit sequence. Should go to show how good the rest of it is though, that even though the final bit of gameplay in the story is this much of a detriment, it remains the king of the A tier. Now we can get on to my favourite stars this game has to offer. Chompworks Galaxy, Cosmic Clones, and the Chompworks. Probably the most well-suited section of the game for adding Cosmic Clones to, given the amount of staying still and retreading already covered ground it involves. That description makes it sound pretty tedious, but it really isn't. The timing required for staying still on these tiny platforms to weigh them down long enough for the gold chomp to pass over, but not so long that the Cosmic Clones catch up, is fairly tight and makes this level an absolute blast. I've heard it brought up in the conversation for one of the hardest levels in the game, and while I wouldn't go that far myself, it is one where every subsequent failure on each life makes starting over even harder, which I love. Frankly, I just wish the level got to go on for a bit longer, because it's a standout to me and it's over unfortunately soon. Honey Hop Galaxy, the Chimp Score Challenge. Can I reasonably justify having a chimp level as high as this? Probably not. Counterpoint though, jumping on a bunch of enemies go burr. The Honey Hop one in particular feels far more open-ended to me than in Fluffy Bluff, with more potential paths to take, more enemies where you gotta decide which ones you're gonna prioritize, and so many set up next to each other that make for ridiculously satisfying combo potential. Out of every chimp challenge, this is what I feel to have the best sweet spot of difficulty and satisfying level design. They better put him in the next Smash Bros. Rolling Coaster Galaxy, Purple Coins on the Rainbow Road. Had this in A tier at first, but after more reflection, I think I can bump it up here. Gotta respect how this is the only non-Grandmaster level in World S to be ball crunchingly hard without pulling any punches. No switches to slow everything down, no heavy compromise in the level design, it just throws you right into a rolling ball mission where you have to collect 100 purple coins and only have enough margin for error to miss 10. This is probably top 3 as far as hardest stars in the game go, because on top of the rolling ball controls being harder to operate on sloped surfaces, you have to be perfectly balanced between speed and precision. Double back too many times if you miss a coin, the timer will run out. Barrel through at full speed, you don't get the full 100 and have to start over. Since the ball doesn't like going back uphill, it also means that some coins become a lost cause as soon as you pass by them. It is unforgiving, it is maddening, it is every bit as brutally difficult as a Rainbow Road should be, and I absolutely adore it for that. Chompworks Galaxy, where the chomps are made of gold. The concept behind Chompworks is one I would have loved to have seen more of. It's one of the most creative settings for a galaxy in the entire game. The Prankster comment does improve upon the final gold chomp section, but this one ever so slightly edges it out thanks to having everything beforehand to back it up. The star eases you into the gimmick well, the middle obstacle course brings back the flip panels, which was neat, and this bit with the gear mode getting repeatedly blasted in the face was very funny. Melty Monster Galaxy, a stroll down rolling lane. Okay, so for as much as I adore Melty Monster as the sum of its parts and consider it one of the best galaxies in the duology, I can't deny that it is very weird to have a fire and lava themed endgame level, and then ditch that theming after the first star to make the rest of it about rock mushroom bowling. I can't say I'm too bothered though, because I love this. It's the perfect kind of challenge for Rock Mario since it removes your ability to stop mid-roll. You just gotta keep going without stopping at any point. As a kid, this level was the bane of my existence, but nowadays it's a blast to speed through and pick my path based on which obstacles and collectibles I feel like going for. The part where you actually pick the star up after you've reached it is probably my favorite in the whole game. Grandmaster Galaxy, the ultimate test. Whether the green star tedium is all worth it to unlock this final galaxy will depend on the person. For me, I'd say it's all worth it to get to that final trial. Every section takes a previously introduced mechanic or enemy and has enough hazards around it to make it very compelling to try and get through. Well, besides the flip switch panel bit, that one's fun enough, but it is way easier than everything else. The rest are all amazing though. You get to swing as Yoshi while avoiding mines and bullet bills, weave between electrical fences as Cloud Mario as wind pushes your platforms, hop over the better flip panels with other enemies to keep you on your toes, get dragged between the surprisingly underutilized pool stars, and close everything off with a gauntlet of Hammer Bros standing in your way from the final Boomerang Bro trio. Those three are the only ones you need to take out to get the star to spawn, but it is very much in your best interest to clear a path first, because the guys throwing hammers at you can reach much farther than I would have expected. I greatly appreciate the music starting more relatively chill, then switching to the more intense tracks as you progress, closing off with the only other use of the Galaxy Generator theme. The whole level kept me constantly on high alert so that I didn't eat shit immediately, and somehow I managed to clear it this time in only a single attempt without taking any damage. Wow, I sure hope I can replicate that when the game mandates it and not take another 45 minutes. Now that would be embarrassing. Throwback Galaxy, Return of the Womp King. A loving remake of one of 64's best levels. It's always a delight to see an old location reimagined in a new game engine, and this one being a singular planetoid with less sprawling open space feels the most perfectly tailored to bring over to Galaxy. Exploring around the level and finding your own way to the top based on whichever shortcuts you're able to find is a delight, and the boss fight with the Womp King is a substantial improvement over how he was before. You've got a replica of the original fight at the top of the tower, then once you're finished with him, you have the real deal to face on the other side. While not one of the toughest bosses in the game or anything, the thwimps and paralyzing shockwaves give you plenty to look out for during the fight, since getting flattened by him is an instant death. He's pretty funny too. I'd be a little more hesitant to put him in the top 5 on the boss ranking nowadays, but he's in the upper echelon for sure. Cosmic Cove Galaxy, Twin Falls Hideaway. Rest in peace, Ice Flower. The world wasn't ready for you. This is one of the few galaxies to go for the same kind of atmosphere that the first game's known for. It's downright therapeutic to take a casual swim through these waters, with shells being available to speed that process up if you find it too slow. I love the inclusion of these almost entirely pointless sling stars. They have no practical purpose, but they do give you a beautiful view from high up and a fun dive back down. So as far as I'm concerned, they're one of the best things the level has going for it. As if this wasn't good enough, once you hit this switch, it freezes all the water over. If you've been paying attention, you already know how I feel about ice skating. And this one lets you wall jump up a pair of frozen waterfalls, which is such a sick set piece. Other levels might be more elaborate and last a good bit longer since this one's on the shorter end, but with maybe one exception, the vibes here are unmatched by anything else in the game. Nothing else is even close, and I cherish it for that. On top of finding the simplistic level design enjoyable in its own right. Cloudy Court Galaxy, Head in the Clouds. It's safe to say that this is Galaxy 2's equivalent to Gusty Garden, right? The theming and music seem to be going for a very similar feel, while still having their own identity, and I think they nail it. This one uses the Cloud Flower far better than Fluffy Bluff, with far more interesting platforming thanks to the wind being added, and the flower not being nearly as plentiful. It's got some amazing environment design as well. These adorable drum kit platforms especially stick out to me. Slimy Spring Galaxy, the Deep Shell Well. Didn't take long for that payoff, huh? This is the one challenger to Cosmic Cove's place on the throne of vibes. There are a ton of relaxing swimming segments that, again, you can speed up with the shell if you want, but it isn't a one-trick pony. Plenty of segments add to the tension with things like the claustrophobic hallways and underwater enemies. I wonder where all those enemies would land on a tier list of the Mario fish. Someone should get on that. You can absolutely argue that the boost rings are a bit at odds with the serene atmosphere. I wouldn't even disagree. Counterpoint, Mario goes through very fast and it's fun and it looks silly and and I like it. None of that compares to the ending though. That final view of the sun as you emerge from the water is probably the single most beautiful moment in the entire game. Pretty much the opposite emotional extreme to the hype bit of Dolphin Shoals. It's a gorgeous view to sit and take in as you prepare to grab the final power star before making your way to Bowser. The ultimate calm before the storm. Bowser Jr.'s fearsome fleet, Bowser Jr.'s mighty Mega Hammer. Everyone knows that Mega Hammer is one of the best bosses in the duology. This is not new information and my 8-year-old self can cope harder. I don't often see a ton of praise thrown towards the rest of the level though, which is a crying shame because it's incredible. It's an epic infiltration of Junior's military base that introduces hazards that Yoshi can't immediately deal with. The Fizzlets can't be eaten when they're active and the mines can't be eaten, period. It also introduces that you can spit back bullet bills to set up for the boss fight. And one of my favourite things to do is spit them way across the map to break the glass before I'm supposed to be able to. The ships appearing on the portals do a lot to spice up the on-rails bits as well. This mission really does fire on all cylinders. Bowser Jr.'s fearsome fleet, Mega Hammer Daredevil run. Just a better version of the boss fight. While I do prefer it with the Daredevil restriction, Mega Hammer isn't a boss that's so challenging that a Daredevil run is that much harder in spite of the additional pressure of avoiding every bullet bill sent your way. That is until the final phase where the electric shockwaves come in. Then it can get a bit crazy trying to dodge several of those at once where you get pairs of bullet bills shot at you and can only deal with one at a time. Yeah, what more do you want me to say? It's Mega Hammer, you know why it's peak. Boulder Goat is still better, I'm afraid. Starshine Beach Galaxy, Purple Coin Beach Dash. Changes the entire vibe of the galaxy with an ingenious use of the dash pepper. From the instant you touch down, you have 35 seconds to hop on Yoshi, eat a pepper, and just run. You've got to collect 100 out of 140 coins, which seems like an easy task, but the minuscule change in angle it takes to send Dash Yoshi way off course makes this one a good bit harder than it looks. It's forgiving enough to where if you miss 2 or 3 by the end, then you might just have enough time to go back and finish things off. I might personally have bumped the countdown to 130 to give you even less room for error, but I can't complain as is. These are the kinds of creative purple coin challenges I live for. Tall Trunk Galaxy, Tall Trunk's Big Slide. I already loved the slide in 64, and this is that cranked up to 64. It's such a dynamic set piece with so many twists and turns and plenty of obstacles. There's never a dull moment, and it doesn't feel too short or drag out and overstay its welcome. Completing it in general is not hard, but doing so entirely unscathed while collecting as much as possible adds a lot to it since it gives you more to keep track of. I even love the little gathering of whittles at the start as they watch you ascend to your next challenge. And they give a checkpoint that initially seems pointless, but it does serve a purpose of saving you a bit of time climbing the tree again if you happen to die. Notice how far into the list we are? This is the weaker of the 2 slide missions. Grandmaster Galaxy, the perfect run. The name is fitting, this is a perfect way to close the game out. Taking an already stellar gauntlet of challenges and making it even harder. Not just the Daredevil restriction, the level itself does change up a bit, most notably the increased number of obstacles in the Yoshi section. It's the hardest level in the game, by a long shot, and is easily the one that's the most satisfying to complete. You might have expected it to rank in first because of that, which is what I was expecting as well, but if I'm getting really granular to order this very close race to the top, I will say that for as much as the frustration the level can cause is usually a boon, since it forces you to keep a calm and collected head lest you start doing worse, it can occasionally suffer ever so slightly when you have to start it over. When laying every segment out, the only ones I actually have consistent trouble on are the spin panels and the very end. For as much as I adore them and they do add to the level, I rarely get tripped up by the Yoshi or Pulstar sections. The Cloud one even less so, and the other ones probably never got on a single person who ever lived. That can sometimes lead to it feeling like going through the motions when starting another attempt. Not often, but when I have to make the tough call among the best the game has to offer, it does drop it down ever so slightly. Does not detract at all though from the joys of finally completing it after hearing a bunch of fan favorite tracks from the first game, and at long last getting to see Rosalina at the very end. Melty Monster Galaxy, the Magnificent Magma Sea. If I were to describe any star as hype moments and aura, it would probably be this one. It's constant big epic set piece after the next. The opening pool star bit is probably the most exciting use of them we've ever seen thanks to the magmargs jumping out of the surrounding lava. Fun little story with this one, I didn't initially know that you kept the momentum from pool stars after you let go. So when I was a kid, I didn't know how to get to this launch star and couldn't finish the level for months. I was a very smart child. Once I did figure it out though, I was graced with a top tier rest of the level. The magmarg jumping at the launch star right before you fly off, followed by the hilarious reflex check, is probably the best use of launch stars in either game. The middle platforming bit is great and brings in the twisters as a unique element, and that final planet is fucking nuts. The abundance of magmas and magmargs make for a phenomenally fun onslaught to get through, and the colour of the planets give you a good visual indicator to where you can stay and catch your breath. It's non-stop excitement all the way through. A more than worthy successor to Melty Molten. Hightail Falls Galaxy Hot Stepping Dash Pepper. Doesn't seem too interesting at first glance, until you start climbing the slope with Yoshi, and just as you're about to lose all traction, you're greeted with my favourite power-up in the game. The dash pepper is super simple. You eat it and you go fast. That's all you need for a banger power-up. You get to speed over a bunch of platforms that drop, and run up walls that eventually add more obstacles. That's just a fun concept, and it's executed perfectly with steadily increasing difficulty. On its own, this isn't an especially hard level, but there are a few self-imposed challenges that I really like. The Penguru cameo section reminds me of the design behind the Celeste strawberries in a way. An entirely optional path off to the side that's harder to reach and has no real benefit towards beating the game, but still a lot of fun to try and do. So is keeping Yoshi to the very end. You can definitely jump off him to grab the star easier, but I find it more fun to run directly into the star so that we're both in the animation at the end. Bowser Jr.'s Boom Bunker, Bowser Jr.'s Boomsday Machine. Easily the best Grand Star mission in the game, thanks in large part to having the best lead up to the boss battle. Having Mega Hammer's remains fire the bullet bill you need to guide to hit the glasses an inspired choice. The targets you can hit from the cannons to get the 1-ups are very fun to go for. There's a cool boomerang bro fight, and a precarious platforming bit with one of the most dangerous comet medals. Everything about this level seems to be going pretty smoothly. If only it ended with the best boss fight in either Galaxy game. Oh hey, would you look at that. The Boomsday Machine still reigns supreme as far as I'm concerned. It's one of the best uses of the Cloudflower since it's built around vertical platforming, with the fans assisting you in the glass cockpit making enough sense in context. The progression with the extra hazards in the second phase and the tower becoming mobile in the third give it a very natural difficulty curve. I wonder if they'll give it a harder rematch later on. Well, as far later as you can get when the original's in 4th place. Shiverburn Galaxy Prince Picante's Peppery Mood. A true evolution of the freeze flame concept from Galaxy 1, having the hot and cold elements actively playing into each other more during the level. You've got icy patches on lava to skate across, meteors raining down on ice to make it harder to maneuver, even one segment where you fully switch it from one side to the other, which you first have to traverse with a cloud suit before you can skate across freely with much calmer music than when you started. It's bursting with creativity at every possible opportunity. Every single section is excellent, and the boss battle at the end wraps everything up in the nicest little bow it possibly could. I never hear anyone talk about Prince Picante, which is tragic. I already ranked him fairly highly on my boss ranking before, and now I'd actually call him one of my favorites. Like, besides the Boomsday Machine, Bouldergeist, and Fiery Dino Piranha, he's pretty handedly my favorite Galaxy boss. And even then, the gap between him and the top 3 is minimal. Depending on the day, I might even put him in 2nd place overall. It's the King Caliente concept, except he's mobile, you get to ice skate around the arena as the fireballs limit where you can go, and there's now a level of franticness trying to get to the coconuts in time. It's an underrated gem of a fight, and I need to know if there are others like me who've seen the light with him. A sensational level all the way through. Did not expect it to be as standout as it was. Shout out to the Hell Valley Sky Trees, gotta be one of my favorite genders. Bowser Jr.'s Boom Bunker, Boomsday Machine, Daredevil Run. In addition to the harder rematch with what was already the best boss in the game, you're also required to do the entire rest of the level beforehand. It's not even a carbon copy either. The targets are now made harder to hit from the cannons, and one part of the level's even been entirely replaced with this poison swamp bit. This is one of the few cases where I'm fine with a Daredevil mission having a checkpoint, since the focus is ultimately meant to be the boss battle. I cleared the fight in one go, but if anyone else was to die on it, I'd imagine starting from the very beginning would be more frustrating than the challenge is worth. The devs went above and beyond what they needed to do with this one, and ended up creating one of the game's crowning jewels, only outdone by Tall Trunk Galaxy, Tall Trunk's Purple Coin Slide. Even though I was pretty sure this was a fan favorite, I didn't expect this one to top the list. Take everything I said about the original slide mission, and add the requirement to grab 100 purple coins on your way down. There's 140, so you have a pretty wide safety net. That is until you realize how many of them overlap on opposite sides of the slide, so it is not possible to get everything without cheating. Then it becomes pretty down to the wire. You'll be met with constant split-second decisions. Oh, do I keep going on this path? But there are more on the other side. Is it worth moving and missing some along the way? The coins are above me but moving over to where I am. Should I go to them, or stay here so that I'm in more control when I need to start following their path? All this while the obstacles along the way do not hold back on you. If you get too caught up in where the coins are, you can easily find yourself losing track of where everything else is and having to start all over as you stumble. It's an absolutely perfect concoction of a purple coin challenge, using the auto-scroller nature to its advantage, and improving what was already one of the best missions in the game by a substantial margin. I managed to do it in a single try, but don't let that tell you it was easy, because I only just barely managed to snag the 100th coin on the very last one, which was one off, if not the single most exciting moment of my entire playthrough. Throughout the steep competition, I can say that Tall Trunk's purple coins is my favourite star in Super Mario Galaxy 2. Well, that was fun, and my voice is shot, so I'm gonna make this outro brief and then I'm going to bed. Thank you for watching this feature film, which will be going on my IMDb credits. This project took a lot out of me, and I sincerely cannot wait to do it again 2 more times over with the green stars and then going back to Galaxy 1. Hope you got something out of hearing me ramble for an hour. Have a good one.